This is the Ohio AgNet from the Voice You Know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by BASF, where you can count on the trusted performance of Alevos seed treatment to protect your soybean crop. I'm Ty Higgins. New and now at OhioAgNet.com, Ohio soybean farmers welcomed a new year of leadership as the Ohio Soybean Association and Ohio Soybean Council elected their boards for 2026. For OSC, elections took place on December 15th. Jerry Bambauer of Auglaize County elected as chairman. He'll be joined by Chad Warner of Darke County as vice chairman, Jeff McKenna of Putnam County as treasurer, and Todd Hesterman of Henry County as secretary. On the OSA side, Pickaway County farmer Bennett Musselman, previously vice president, now elevated to president. Rusty Goebel of Williams County, the former president, assumes the role of chairman. Dustin Converse of Union County elected vice president, and Dave Green of Crawford County elected treasurer. Adam Vondahar of Preble County elected as secretary of OSA. You can read more about these elections online now at OhioAgNet.com. Pretty common for seed companies to have agronomists, salesmen, but how about a marketing consultant? Matt Bennett is Beck's grain marketing consultant. He talks about his role within a seed company.
I think for any producers, obviously right now is a very challenging environment. I've actually done this in the industry for quite some time, talked to Beck's over the last few years and realized that they kind of wanted to bring something in like this. Not only do we do like a newsletter twice a week, but we also do a podcast now. And so I know a lot of guys and gals like to get their information from a podcast. We try to do a 5 or 10 minute deal, nothing too cumbersome, but basically just try to hit on topics that are super important right now. And so we do that every Tuesdays at 10:30 Central Time.
He says as far as what Beck's customers are asking him, it comes down to trade and tariffs.
Right now, of course, everyone's interested in the verbal agreement that President Trump and Xi made, that we're going to sell them 12 million metric tons of soybeans by the end of the year, which that seems like quite a big deal, and so obviously the market was excited about that, took the news well. But then, unfortunately, people are questioning it because two different things. It's been slow to see those purchases come in, first of all. Second of all, China is definitely still buying Brazilian soybeans. And so people are asking me, what tells you that they're actually going to go ahead and buy beans? And you've got to kind of get into the weeds a little bit. As of right now, our FOB values down at the Gulf are not competitive with Brazil. So why would China buy beans? And so you got to ask yourself, you can't just talk about soybeans. You got to talk about, what does this mean for them from a trade standpoint? Obviously, the U.S. and China have both tried to play hardball with each other. And I think that they've come to the realization that if they want their products to flow freely into the U.S., and quite frankly, we're the number one consumer of goods in the world. We're gluttons. I mean, that's all there is to it. They want our market. And to get our market, they're going to have to buy soybeans. So, yes, I do believe they're going to buy soybeans. But I would say that when Trump came out this week and said, hey, they need to get with it and buy more beans, I'm glad that's all he said, because I get a little nervous when he talks.
He says be careful when it comes to trade and tariffs, especially when it comes to differentiating rumors from fact.
One thing I would caution everyone on, I think they're going to buy the beans. I do. But if you go back to 2020 and 21 with the phase one trade deal, every time that we made huge announcements for Chinese purchases for corn, the market would race up during the day, and by the close, we'd maybe be up 2, 3, 4 cents. So what was going on there? Well, I think there were people that were long the market, and then whenever they got the news, they ended up offsetting those contracts. Who was that? Well, it might have been China, who had actually bought some of this product on the Board of Trade. And then they offset their hedge whenever they actually announce the purchase. And so, I don't know that we will race sharply higher. I think what's really going to impact the market whenever it gets right down to it is, hey, what's going to happen with South America? Is South America's weather going to be benign? Right now, Argentina's got some dryness issues. If that is the case, and there is no doubt in my mind that this bean market actually could go quite a bit higher. Typically, whenever you spend a lot of time below $11 and then you go above 11, historically, we almost always go to 12. And sometimes 12.50 and 13. I know I don't want to get my biggest caution for growers. I don't want to get you bulled up, because what do we usually do when the market rallies? We get bullish. What should we do when the market rallies? Sell incrementally into the rally. That's the best way to handle the market, in my opinion. If you run out of old beans because you sold them at profitable levels, that's not a bad thing, because guess what? Now we can focus on next year.
He offers a place to find more information and to find that podcast.
As far as the newsletter goes, they can easily get that newsletter if they go to their local Beck's guy, get their email in the system, they'll get the newsletter twice a week. All right. As far as the podcast goes, Beck's Hybrids on YouTube is where they can go get them. Now, we do go live, but they can go watch the previous ones as well.
That's Matt Bennett, grain marketing consultant with Beck's. How are the last few days of 2025 shaping up weather-wise? Let's get a check of the forecast now with Ryan Martin.
Today is going to be interesting as we do have moisture overrunning a warm front that's coming in. That means we've got moisture coming over the top of a cold layer of air trapped at the surface in northwest Ohio. I think here to start the day, we have to keep our eyes out for a little bit of freezing rain, freezing drizzle in northwest Ohio, just general scattered rain showers everywhere else. Not a lot of moisture that we're talking here, a few hundredths to a few tenths, that is all, but it's definitely a cloudy, gray day today. Better chances for bigger rains, I think, early this afternoon, north central and northeastern parts of the state. We clear out overnight tonight. Your Saturday is partly sunny, windy, and mild. Strong southwest flow ahead of our next front here. That front starts to trigger moisture on a Sunday morning, and we see on again, off again rain showers pretty much all day, anywhere from a quarter to 1 inch of rain likely out of that. The cold air comes in behind quickly for Monday. We stay quite cold Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then temperatures stay on the cooler side of normal, likely through the new year. I'm Ryan Martin.
Ryan, thank you. Weather brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. How's the labor outlook shaping up for agriculture in 2026 and beyond? We'll find out coming up after this as the Ohio AgNet continues.
After years of dedication, Jim and Jody Johnson are retiring and selling their quality farm equipment through Purple Wave's December 30th Ag Auction. Don't miss their 2024 John Deere ExactEmerge 1775 NT Planter and 2019 John Deere S760 Combine. See the equipment yourself during open inspections at Osage, Iowa on Wednesday, December 17th and Monday, December 29th, both from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit purplewave.com for a complete listing. Purple Wave Auction, straight, simple, sold.
Welcome back to the Ohio AgNet. I'm Ty Higgins. What does the outlook for labor look like in agriculture? For today's featured audio, we check in with Joel Penorwood.
So good to be at the Ohio State University talking about agricultural policy, agricultural economics, and the outlook there. And what an interesting time to be talking to Dr. Margaret Jalowski, talking about the labor market outlook, and no shortage of things to talk about, to look forward to think about with regard to the labor market in agriculture. Let's give an overview, first of all, of what you spoke about today.
So today I covered first, I always like to start with the general labor market. What's going on in the general labor market has very direct impacts on what happens for the agricultural space. But in the agricultural space, what's really dominating the conversation right now is policy, or the sort of policy whiplash that we're all experiencing with regards to immigration enforcement. As you probably are aware, good percentage of farm workers are immigrants, and a proportion of those do lack legal work authorization. With the uptick we've seen in immigration enforcement, how has that had impact on farms around the country and around the state is a really important question that's on a lot of people's minds. At the same time, I also covered some positive news about the H-2A program, which is most farmers, or at least a good proportion of farmers, really only resource right now for accessing a legal workforce.
Now, specifically on that H-2A topic, you were kind of alluding to, it's a magic word. Sometimes it's thrown out as this great solution, but it does have challenges specifically with regard to specific needs in agriculture, such as timeliness.
Absolutely. So everyone, in response to the uptick in immigration enforcement, a lot of times you'll hear really what I think is quite flippant. Oh, just use H-2A. Oh, you can just get workers from H-2A. But what people aren't recognizing is exactly what you just said. It's not timely. It's not like you snap your fingers and a week later or even a day later, workers are at your door. It's a process with at least a 3-month lead time. And if you've never used the program before, that can easily extend to 6 months or even more. And so it's not timely. And what is really needed in an agricultural workforce is timeliness. In addition, the costs of the program for a long time have been quite high. There is news on that, at least, that there will be some wage relief in terms of that, but it still is much higher than the prevailing wage rate that workers would pay if you just were hiring them on the normal labor market. And so, and to say nothing of the fact that the program is completely ill fit for purpose for animal agriculture operations. So if you're operating a dairy or any other sort of animal agricultural operation, you're really not going to find what you need in H-2A because your work is not seasonal. Cows need to be milked 365 days a year. That's not seasonal under the definition, and the program is not available to them for that reason.
Any insight into something you've alluded to, uptick in immigration enforcement and its impact on ag?
Absolutely. So right now we aren't really able to capture any numbers, put hard and fast numbers, but the reports out there, the anecdotal stories, anytime you Google it, you'll find more and more examples of raids that are happening on farm workplaces. And that is having a negative effect. The administration's Department of Labor representative actually made a filing in the Federal Register just a few weeks ago saying that we are approaching sort of a catastrophic point in our ability to produce food domestically if there is not a solution put forward that gives farmers access to a stable and legal workforce. And I don't think it gets much more scary than that, really, to have that kind of statement being put out. It didn't get a ton of attention because the Federal Register isn't something everyone's reading every day, but it definitely is making waves in, I think, the agricultural space. And it's something that I think farmers have felt for a really long time, and now it's sort of coming to the forefront. And it's like, look, this is something that has mattered for a really long time, and now we're just kind of almost at a crisis point.
So what's the answer?
If I had the answer, I think I'd have a different job as some sort of a magical consultant. But I mean, there's a lot of different answers. I think recognizing the fact that there needs to be some sort of policy for agriculture that makes sense. It's an industry that matters hugely for the future of our country. It mattered hugely in the history of our country. And in order for it to continue to have that role, food production is going to have to happen somewhere, regardless of whether that's happening in other countries where they have a more flexible labor market policy, or if it's happening here, it's going to have to happen somewhere. And if we want it to keep happening here, there just needs to be a realistic labor market solution that involves some sort of recognition of the fact that a lot of these people are immigrants and just accepting that and moving forward.
A lot of talk out there. If you go to any coffee shop, people saying, there's so many jobs, people aren't willing to work, or along those lines. Do the numbers support that? Thoughts there?
Not quite so much in the general labor market anymore. We've seen a huge sort of what we would call a freezing of the labor market. The labor market right now is in some call it freezing, some call it balance, but the number of job openings per unemployed person is actually now slightly below 1. We would usually like that for a robust, healthy job market. We'd like that usually to be up in the area of 1.5. So we are not actually seeing as many job openings as we would hope. We saw wage growth really, really slow down during the summer months, and that has continued into the fall. Payroll is declining, overall. And at the same time, firms are not laying people off. So they're just kind of holding still. They're not taking in new people or letting people go. And so there is, I think, a good deal that can be learned from that in terms of how firms are anticipating uncertainty in the future.
It's a topic where there's no shortage of discussion. We could sit here for hours and talk about this and go on and on.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much for lending yours and your expertise to this. Dr. Margaret Kozlowski joining us here at The Ohio State University. Talk and outlook for the labor market, and an interesting time to be sure for agriculture. I'm Joel Penorwood for the Ohio AgNet.
From labor to the markets, let's get some news behind the numbers brought to you by Louis Dreyfus Company. Excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky. Call 574-566-2113 for information on soybean marketing to LDC. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets were sharply higher on Wednesday ahead of the pause in the markets. Yesterday, markets were closed because of the Christmas holiday. No overnight trade last night either. So when we kick off this morning, that's going to be when traders get back at it. However, I look for a very low volume trade again today. And today is kind of a placeholder. Honestly, most people are on a paid time off. Now, if Brazil harvests a 180 million metric ton plus soybean crop, they'll be exporting soybeans through the end of 2026, which will directly compete with the U.S. farmers market. Keep that in mind as you look at whether or not China is going to buy 25 million metric tons this next round or not. I'm Ryan Martin.
Thanks, Ryan. The markets will not open again until later on this morning, so these are Wednesday's closing prices. March corn 3 cents higher, $4.50 May $4.58 up 3 cents as well. January beans 11 1/4 better after Wednesday's trade at $10.62 3/4. March 10.75 3/4 up by 12 cents, and July wheat 6 cents better, closing out Wednesday at $5.44 1/2. December live cattle down 12 points at $228.70. February live cattle 228.55 down by 145. Feeder cattle for March 338.80 down 20. February lean hogs down 92 at 85.05 and lean hogs for April 89.80 and down 47 cents. For the Ohio AgNet, I'm Ty Higgins reporting. We'll see you down the road.